This is my video review for Transformers Dark of the Moon Voyager class Shockwave. This is a pretty neat figure, but it is not without its flaws. So right now we have in robot mode, and one thing you'll notice is that I have his blade thing stuck in his hand that's folded up on his wrist. I like that more because it makes his gun arm look all that more imposing. It helps to hide this folded up hand a little bit because it hides a thumb and puts something there. And I never quite like the blade sticking off here, but it works pretty well there. So in this mode he has a rotating head. His arms, they're jointed like this, so they do what they need to do, but it's a little bit awkward. They go out, they turn, and he has 90 degrees at the elbow, but he has a curler bracer arm. Although on this figure, because the main thing for this figure is this gun, it's not as big of a deal as it could be. Because it's like, this guy, you pose him aiming and shooting, not manipulating stuff. That's about the only good thing concerning this kind of hand, is that when it's this kind of curler bracer arm, is that if it's not a character that you expect to really manipulate things, and especially if he has a gun like this, it's not as bad as it could be. Let's see. Oh, one other thing is, I never attach the tube to the gun. That just always limits it. I attach it from down here to up here, so it's like it goes into the shoulder, which from there pipes out to the gun, and you still get to see the tube on the back. So that's how I do that. The legs forward, back, ratcheted out, rotate above the knee, and then there's a little peg in here to tab this into. So really it's 90 degrees, but it is a double hinge. And it works pretty well. And his legs and his feet don't have much articulation at all. Because if you bend them forward, then he falls forward because it's kind of a weak joint. But they do peg in pretty well. And then he does have a heel, which can push him forward. So if you say leaning back, kinda, that little heel tab will help him quite a bit. So overall, this guy's a pretty neat looking robot mode. Not quite screen accurate. I wish he didn't have curler bracer arms, but I don't mind it too much. And overall, he's a nice figure. And probably the biggest complaint for me is just how his shoulders go in. Now transform this guy. Pull this out. I always just remove this because it's a hassle and a pain, and the tube is just good for the robot mode. I mean, it can do some stuff in the tank mode that I'll show you. Some unintentional stuff, but the tube's just not that great. To transform this guy, pull, turn his head around, push this up to cover it, pull this whole assembly back, rotate this around, make sure his head stays with it. Yeah, there we go. And then make sure these are folded out. Then you will turn his legs out like this, fold in these tabs, and start to fold the legs up. Pull this forward, and that will free these up so they get out of the way. Push this through between his legs, and yeah, make sure these are just out of the way. And then these will sort of sandwich around this area here and peg into this wheel looking thing and onto several parts down here. So start doing that. It's a little bit awkward to do because everything's kind of a tight fit in this. but it's easily doable. And this is the hardest part, and it's just because making sure everything's aligned is kind of difficult. Actually, this is a lot harder than I remember. It's been a while since I messed with this figure, but there we go. I had the leg joints a little bit too forward, and this bar not forward enough. Once you get that done, it stays pretty stable, and I always leave the feet out like this, just because that makes the tank mode look more interesting, and the same with these. Then you'll pop this on. There are little tabs on here. They go into little notches under there. Now, yeah, it snaps in place, and I'll leave that pretty solid. Then this part right here, you'll tab the pectoral pieces into his heels here. And they go in pretty well. And then you'll take this chest piece and it'll tab onto some holes on these black bars that connect the pectoral pieces. And then you take the arms, fold them up, push them forward, and tab them down over like this. Now see, I'm going to take this off now because I don't transform this guy the way the instructions show you, because normally there's just a gap through here. This sits over here. This sits over here, and this sits over here, and just leaves a big gap, and it doesn't look as good as it should. But what you can do is, if you look in here, you can see his thumbs. There's some molded detail on the gun. Now the thumbs will grab onto, so if you push the gun through like this, it sits pretty well. I mean, it'll come off if you... I mean, see, even here it's lifting the figure, although it will slide out. So the way to keep it from sliding out is if you make sure it stays down like this, because then it'll stay latched on the thumbs. And the way you do this, actually, is you take the hose piece, let's see, yeah, plug into here and out here, like this. Then you take the blade, plug it into here, push it over the hose, and doing that, well, of course, the arms can come unplugged, which is kind of the problem with doing this. But, for the most part, it keeps this pretty stable, and I probably didn't have that arm down well enough anyway, so slide that under the thumbs, like that. Tab into the gun, and tab down here. Push this in, and lay it over the wires so that make sure this goes under like that, and that will keep the wire from being too high, so the blade can push down on it without forcing the arm up. Got that. Like that. Pretty sturdy, it looks a lot better because it comes from the center, so it looks a lot more solid, and you don't see the hollow pieces of the blade here. You see the filled in pieces of the blade, and I like that a lot better than the official tank mode. And this thing, it rolls pretty well. The thing is that these pieces here have no wheels. You have the wheels back here and the wheels here, so even though these cow-catcher looking parts aren't that good looking, you can't remove them without removing the ability for this thing to roll. And that's kind of a shame because, well, there's a reason why there aren't wheels here. So the legs can fit inside of these, the upper legs, the thighs can fit inside of here. But it'd be nice if they had just had like a little post that came down from here with a wheel, as opposed to having these that stick way out forward. And that's Shockwave. Thanks for watching. He's highly recommended, and he was initially thought to be that he would be a hard to find figure, but he's actually kind of a shell former where I live, so you can probably find him. Thanks for watching.